Good day, sociology students. This is the very first picture ever taken of my son. He's perhaps 2.5 months old. The reason I show you that, how's my favorite class today? The reason I show you that picture was because we're going to talk about the family as an agent of socialization. Last day we talked about agents of socialization. We mentioned the family as being one of the most important, followed closely by the peer group. We said there are others. We said there's school. We said clubs. I should have mentioned clubs. I'm not sure if I did or not. Job, workplace, that kind of thing. These are all components that come together to help to socialize us physically, mentally, and socially, to get by in society, to gravitate, to move through our culture in a society. And there are different agents of socialization in different cultures. There are different requirements in different cultures. What works here in this particular area might not work in another part of the world. The family, however, is the most consistent and important throughout the world. It is where we learn the basics. It is where we learn to navigate our world. What's most important in the family group, and this is supported by all theorists like Piaget, Kohlberg, Freud. Freud we talked about a little bit in the first part of the semester. They all say developmentally, in infancy and adolescence, the family is the most important in relation to socialization and development. It's where children learn love and nurturing, and where they first start to develop a self-image, which is very important for the production of balanced individuals. We'll get to that a little more later. So we can talk about theorists, and I can spend lots of time, sending you lots of notes via email that you're going to be sick of reading in very short order. What instead I did was I sent you a link to a guy named Harlow, some of his research. What Harlow did is he wanted to know what the effects were in relation to socialization, what the effects of love and nurturing were to babies. And he couldn't obviously use babies in experiments, he probably tried though, but instead what he used was baby monkeys. He took baby monkeys as soon as they were born away from their mother, and he raised them in isolation with absolutely no social contact with any other primate, including man. Nobody had any social contact with these monkeys. What was discovered, he did all kinds of research wanting to discover all kinds of things, but what was discovered generally, what his research supports, is that those monkeys, as a general rule, were developmentally delayed, as a general rule had incredibly increased anxieties, and as a general rule died very early. They didn't reach adulthood or late adulthood anyway. Now, those three things that we learned from Harlow should really open our eyes, or did open the eyes of many researchers, on development and the importance of development in the early years and the importance of socialization by the family. Now, let's talk about the picture of my son that I showed you earlier. My son was born, and as a small child, as an infant, he was kept amongst the family group, which is pretty common. But as he grew older, he experienced nurturing and comfort and love. He started to move out to test his surroundings, and he only did that because he knew that if something scared him in the real world, he could run right back, and he had his nurturing mom or dad there that would guide him through. So that was the development, that was the start of the development of his socialization. Now, when you get into early adolescence, children get a little more rambunctious, and they start moving away more from the parent. It is at this time frame when one of the researchers that I referenced, a guy named Jordan Peterson, he was a professor at Harvard University, professor at the University of Toronto until very recently. Not only is he a professor, not only is he an academic, He also had a private practice where he worked as a psychiatrist. And I liked reading his work, and I'll tell you why, because it's not based on theory, a little bit of study here, a little bit of study there. He put in decades in the trenches studying individuals. And what he noticed was a lot of issues that developed from individuals could be traced back to childhood issues. And what he says, or what's mentioned in his book, is he says the most important job of a parent is to socialize a child so they can get along with other children at a very early age. And he supports that by giving an example, is the play date. He says, and this is important, and I'll tell you why it's important, because you people, within a decade, you people are going to start having kids or earlier. So he says the play date is very important, and why it's important is because if you socialize your child so that he gets along with other children, and relatively, I mean, kids are going to have squats and squabbles and fights, but if the other children doesn't absolutely hate your child during play dates, you're on the right track. Because if other children do, for some reason, strongly dislike your child, there might be the possibility of future issues. And he gives the example of the child that is disliked strongly by other children. They show up to a play date. The other children don't want to play with them. They run away from them. The parent that they see, or parents that they see when you show up for the play date, just look and go, oh my God, there's so-and-so's kid again. And they don't look happy looking at your child. So what your child would see is their first experience with adults outside of the parental boundaries, outside of the home, outside the family group, is adults that don't really like them. And they see other children that don't really like them. So that really is you're starting off on the wrong foot in the development of a positive self-image. So that's something for you to keep in mind. Anyway, that's a quick summation of the family group in relation to socialization in social.